A live stream on YouTube. Just 1 second. All right, we can start. Whoever starts.
Wait, is it recording now, Roberto?
It is recording on YouTube.
Okay. So, hello, welcome everyone, wherever in the world you are. I'm Gabriele from the Delft University of Technology. I'm a student of urbanism during my master there. And we are speaking from you from the city of Delft in the Netherlands. Welcome to the fourth and final session of our Urban Thinkers campus on a call for a manifesto for the just city, in which we will discuss race and space with our guest Tainá de Paula, Brazilian urbanist and politician, and Suraj Yengde, postdoctoral fellow at the Harvard Kennedy School of Public Policy and author. Welcome also to those that are watching this event on the YouTube channel. Would like to give the word to Anya.
Hiya, my name is Anya Vanderwat, and I want to say welcome to the final of 4 manifestos for the Just City. It's kind of a bittersweet moment for us. We've had a really nice run so far, and we think tonight's going to be very interesting. We're very glad to have you here, and we're so happy that so many people have agreed to participate in this manifesto.
And today I don't need to go there inside to talk.
Just a second. There is somebody speaking at the same time. I will try to.
I mute it.
Okay. Go on.
Yeah, we are living in extraordinary times, and we need new and better visions for cities and communities that are just, inclusive, and sustainable. We are a team of students and teachers at TU Delft's Global Urban Lab, the TU Delft platform to discuss issues of urbanization in the Global South. The organizers of this event are myself, Gabriela Caradona, Ganesh Babu, Jonathan Subendran, Lucas de Juea. Sorry, I thought I would get this wrong and I did. Natalia Teles, Luz Maria Vergara, Igor Tempels Pessoa, and Roberto Rocco. We are also supported by the Delft Global Initiative and the Spatial Justice Network. The idea is that by organizing and participating in such activities, we extend the mutual learning much beyond the classroom. And I'd like to give it over to my colleague.
Hi, everyone. My name is Jonathan. So this event is organized in partnership with the World Urban Campaign, the UN Habitat platform in charge of promoting the implementation of the new urban agenda, launched in 2016 in Quito, Ecuador. The website of the World Urban Campaign is in the chat box, and there you can find the complete overview of all the UTCs organized. So the Urban Thinkers Campus are instrumental platforms for stakeholders to get together to make decisions about implementing the new urban agenda. And today our special guests are Tainá de Paula and Suraj Yengde. But before we introduce our guests properly, I'd like to give now the word to the TU Delft students involved in the organization of this event.
Hello, everyone. My name is Natalia, and welcome to the Manifesto of the Just City for the students of TU Delft, from the students of TU Delft. My name is Natalia, and along with the Global Urban Lab team, TU Delft master students Gabriele, Anya, Ganesh, and Jonathan have pushed to make this UTC happen. 2 decades ago, Ed Socha referred to the state of affairs in the field of urbanism as both the best and the worst of times to be studying cities. While there is so much that is new and challenging to respond to, there is much less agreement than ever before on the best way to practically and theoretically make sense of the new urban worlds being created. We believe that this workshop series is an extremely valuable way of connecting with students from around the world, as well as collaborating with people from varied backgrounds and disciplines. The opportunity to exchange ideas and expand our knowledge will be fruitful for all and will provide us the chance to have a better understanding on global issues. The UTC is a unique opportunity to gain knowledge about current matters that are present in cities around the world. What are the causes of both the visible and invisible inequalities in our cities? And more importantly, how can we tackle these as urban practitioners? Furthermore, we are excited to hear ideas and thoughts from other students participating from around the world. In these times of political and societal unrest, it is important to strengthen solidarity amongst us to push forward our agendas towards building a more just and egalitarian society. We hope this workshop will be a nice way to promote collaboration across disciplines, but also across universities, and break the silence that contains us.
Hi everyone, my name is Lucas De Joya, and I'm a student from the Department of Urbanism of TU Delft. This is our third UTC, and the first TU Delft UTC was organized in 2017 and was titled Education for the City We Need. There, we explored how to discuss and teach the UN Habitat New Urban Agenda, and the link for the results is in the chat box. The second UTC happened in July of this year and addressed responses to the COVID pandemic in cities around the world: Minsk, São Paulo, Kerala, Santiago, and how to build back better via the new Green Deal. We are right now preparing a report on that event. This event is supported by the Spatial Justice Network. This is a network for teachers and students interested in the concept of spatial justice and is organized by Russell Smith from the Winston-Salem University in North Carolina and colleagues from around the world. The website of the network is on the chat box. Before we hear from Tainá, let's hear a few words from Russell about the network.
Thank you, Lucas. I appreciate that, and good morning. Oh, I guess everybody's good afternoon. I've got some bad feedback, so I apologize for that. But yeah, I just want to take a few minutes. Can you guys hear me okay? It's really echoing. Okay, perfect.
We can hear you
so
now.
Yeah, so
yes.
The Spatial Justice Network was something that I came up with, and Roberto has been critically important in continuing. It's an idea that is focused on trying to explore how to define spatial justice, developing a pedagogy, methodology for exploring spatial justice issues across countries, cities, continents. And it's a goal of uniting not only faculty and academics, but citizens, students, practitioners around these spatial inequalities that we know exist across especially urban communities. And the best news I can share with you today is that if you go to the website, you can register, and it's free. So there's not a lot of free things out there, but this is a free thing that you can register and become a member of. We had our first event back in the spring, and Roberto and I, once he's finished with this monumental project, are focused on holding a second event come the winter, so winter of 2021. So be on the lookout for more information. But we really are looking at this to be an opportunity to develop spatial justice further as a concept, as a methodology for both quantitative and qualitative research. And if you're interested in participating, please sign up through the spatialjustice.org link that I think is on the slide you're seeing, as well as in the chat. And appreciate the opportunity to spread the message about this important organization. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, thank you, Russell. And without further ado, I would like to give the floor to our first speaker, Tainá de Paula. Tainá is a Brazilian architect and urban planner, activist in urban social movements, and a specialist in cultural heritage and urbanism by the Federal University of Rio de Janeiro. She has worked in social housing projects, providing technical assistance for movement fighting for the right of housing. She has just been elected city councillor in Rio de Janeiro. So after digging deeper into some current challenges, such as housing injustices and the power of urban planning, tonight we will get a better understanding of race and space. So Tainá, the floor is yours.
Before we hear Tainá, Suraj, sorry for this. So Tainá arrived, so I hope it's not a, well, he already answered to me. Tainá, guys, I will speak one thing in Portuguese, so sorry for this. Você vai falar em português ou em inglês? Alô? Tainá?
You are
Roberto. Yeah. Roberto, eu me preparei. I prepared for speaking in Portuguese. That's a problem?
No, no. Our audience, so our audience is all over the world, right? So what we are going to try to do, there is a function here of subtitles. We are going to try to follow what you're saying in subtitles, but maybe I'm going to ask you to stop and I will translate in Portuguese, okay?
All right.
But please go on. Pode falar em português.
Tá. Obrigada, Roberto. Obrigada à organização do evento. É um momento oportuno de nós discutirmos enquanto campo intelectual que discute cidade. E é, sem dúvida, um ano produtivo no que se refere à organização de uma agenda de discussão urbana, justiça social e direito à cidade e à moradia. O ano eleitoral, ele nos permite construir não só a reflexão de uma proposição direta de agenda urbana num contexto presente, mas também se abre uma oportunidade, uma grande janela de discussão para refletirmos sobre o contexto futuro das cidades. Eu toco uma discussão junto à Hermínia Maricato, que é uma organização de uma série de ativistas das lutas urbanas no campo acadêmico, no campo dos movimentos sociais, que nós intitulamos BR Cidades. Nesse movimento, nessa grande organização nacional, existe uma dinâmica que é discutir a política institucional operando na construção de uma agenda propositiva no campo das cidades, que é, na minha opinião, um dos esteios, um dos encontros mais positivos da discussão urbana atual. E eu peço... Oi.
A gente está traduzindo, mas está aparecendo aqui, mas eu só vou dar uma... né, porque a gente tem gente do mundo inteiro, então eu vou dar uma...
Sim.
Guys, so I hope everybody can see the captions, right, at the bottom. If you can't, you can click closed caption and you will see. And I'm also trying to say to type on the chat. I am not a very good typer, so please follow what Tainá is saying in the closed caption. So just to summarize, Tainá has just been elected city councillor of Rio de Janeiro, and she thinks that this electoral moment in Brazil allows us to discuss the problems of cities, but also to think about future development in the city. That's in big lines what she just said. Pode continuar.
Perfeito. E nesse sentido, eu entendo que o grande desafio que nós, urbanistas, planejadores urbanos, ativistas urbanos, o que a gente precisa construir nesse momento de agenda ultraliberal colocada nas cidades é uma agenda de organização e de proposição, que é, na minha opinião, um dos grandes esvaziamentos do que eu diria ser o campo democrático. E aí eu por ser uma mulher, uma liderança de esquerda, eu não me excluo e muito menos me coloco apenas falando desse campo de esquerda, porque eu entendo que a cidade precisa estar num patamar de diálogo, de discussão com todos os outros campos, e aí eu quero colocar aqui que é necessário a construção de uma dinâmica e de uma agenda de cidade que se reivindique democrática, entendendo a necessidade de concertação e de diálogo entre todos os campos e espectros políticos no Brasil, nesse campo. Nesse sentido também, para além de eu achar importante iniciativas como o BR Cidades, eu também entendo que existe aí uma construção que tem dois polos. Entendermos o que a gente conseguiu consolidar de agenda urbana no século XX. É importante a gente gastar um tempo nesse sentido de construção, de entendimento e de tradução dos nossos esforços no último grande ciclo de urbanismo e de perspectiva de construção de cidade no Brasil, e acho que o século XX precisa ser estudado e estimulado nesse sentido provocador, o que conseguimos construir e consolidar de fato de agenda urbana no Brasil, e como é que a gente, à luz do coronavírus, à luz de uma pandemia mundial, estabelece uma nova agenda urbana que, de fato, opere no enfrentamento dos nossos problemas urbanos. E aí, nessa contramão, talvez, do que a gente tenha já consensuado entre os nossos pares, entre o nosso campo, eu vejo como importantíssimo o que eu venho falando de arrumação da casa. Quais são as nossas peças e as nossas pautas inegociáveis no campo da luta e da disputa do discurso urbano? Veja bem, eu quero e venho me dedicando à discussão sobre o que fazemos e o que fizemos no sentido da urbanização e da hiperurbanização das cidades brasileiras. As cidades brasileiras foram hiperurbanizadas não só pelo avanço do capital produtivo, pelo avanço da agenda neoliberal nas cidades, ela foi hiperurbanizada em grande medida porque os urbanistas do século XX reforçaram intelectualmente, teoricamente, esta dinâmica urbana. Nesse sentido, é preciso refletir por que diálogos com agendas que, do ponto de vista mundial, se estabeleceram com novas práticas e novos parâmetros. Aí eu quero reforçar aqui a inexistência de uma agenda socioambiental sustentável com lastro e com apelo e base popular sólida. Não existe uma agenda ambiental hoje no Brasil que seja defendida por atores para fora do ambientalismo e para fora dos atores e agentes públicos desta pauta. É importantíssimo, nesse sentido, estabelecer que, em grande medida, nós esvaziamos essa discussão e hoje o coronavírus se estabelece aí como uma janela, né, de não vou dizer oportunidade, porque, obviamente, o coronavírus é um grande colapso do ponto de vista ambiental e sociossanitário, mas se abre uma janela de discussão de outros parâmetros de integração, de debate da agenda social e ambiental do Brasil. Para além disso, eu, como uma das pouquíssimas arquitetas negras que vocês conhecem da discussão urbana, quero reivindicar aqui a pouquíssima e a baixíssima contribuição e o baixíssimo repertório racial sobre o entendimento e... Ficou baixo. Estão me ouvindo?
Sim.
A baixíssima contribuição dos arquitetos e urbanistas, dos planejadores urbanos, na construção da dinâmica das cidades brasileiras, que são diretamente fruto da inexistência de pacto e mais, de completa inserção de negros e negras na dinâmica urbana das cidades do Brasil, entendendo que o nosso sistema de relação social e o nosso sistema de mercado e de produção foram estabelecidos a partir das relações de escravismo, de coronelismo e de subalternização da ampla maioria da nossa classe trabalhadora, que originariamente sempre foi negra e, no século XX, passou a ser negra, mestiça, favelada e periférica. Nesse sentido, é tarefa do século XXI estabelecer como é possível uma economia, no caso a brasileira, e eu diria a latino-americana, abrir mão desta ultra-precarização do trabalho, do trabalhador, entendendo que as favelas, as periferias, são os dormitórios de uma classe ainda muito explorada ao longo desse século XX, dessa entrada desse século XXI. As novas senzalas urbanas, os novos mucambos urbanos, os novos quilombos urbanos, eles se retroalimentam e se perpetuam por uma dinâmica brasileira que impede a ascensão social, mobilidade socio-racial e que perpetua que a base da pirâmide, a base da contribuição no mercado de trabalho seja a partir da mão de obra precarizada, barata e, na minha opinião, vilipendiada no que se refere à discussão de melhor garantia e qualidade de vida. Nesse sentido, a gente, atores da discussão da cidade, banalizamos o que deveríamos ter feito ao longo do século XX para equilibrar a injustiça socio-racial territorial. É importante a gente falar sobre a desigualdade socio-racial e territorial no Brasil, entendendo uma dinâmica importante, que é a construção da emancipação do Brasil enquanto cidades, enquanto nação, em que medida nós produzimos e nós nos debruçamos sobre a independência brasileira no que se refere aos aspectos econômicos, aos aspectos urbanos, e em que medida a gente estabelece uma independência dessas relações de precarização do trabalho.
Tainá, momentinho só. Guys, I am typing furiously and Lucas is typing furiously, but I kind of couldn't type the last part. So I'm going to tell you that Tainá is drawing our attention to the fact that a lot of the low-skilled workers in Brazil that are very lowly paid, that live in the peripheries of Brazilian cities, and that are excluded, they are Black. And we have, as urban planners and designers, to have a new look at how these relations of work have been established throughout history, since, in the case of Brazil, but also the United States, slavery and precarization of work. So people they don't have contracts anymore, how this affects certain groups and how these groups are excluded from participating in the planning of the city. So basically, that was a bit of a summary. I will continue with, pode continuar, Tainá. I will continue with typing. And Lucas.
Ok. Nesse sentido, é também importante atrelarmos a agenda urbana cada vez mais com a agenda social. Como é que a gente consegue construir um repertório e um lexo e um sentido no campo da teoria que insira, de fato, a reconstrução do que entendemos como dinâmica social e como relações econômicas possíveis. Na minha opinião, e na opinião de alguns outros teóricos, aí eu quero lançar a mão de Harvey, Zizek, Krenak, que são autores que, em 2020, discutiram muito as bases do capitalismo como impossíveis de serem perpetuadas no médio e no longo prazo na maioria das civilizações. Tem um texto que eu quero, inclusive, recomendar, tenho recomendado muito, porque eu acho que ele é curto, ele é sintético e ele é muito concreto no que se refere a esse enfrentamento, e tem um título muito curioso, que foi escrito por Zizek e está no livro O Coronavírus e a Luta de Classes, que tem por título O capitalismo tomou um golpe de Kill Bill do coronavírus. Não sei quem viu o filme, mas, sem dúvida alguma, essa alegoria é muito impactante do que a gente precisa fazer com o capitalismo, né? Entendendo que nós descobrimos que os países podem, sim, produzir menos, que os países, sim, podem trabalhar com renda básica universal, inclusive países que notoriamente defendiam o ultraliberalismo até o Covid-19 foram colocados numa agenda de produção. Todo mundo está esperando, sim, a vacina que será produzida, que deve ser produzida em larga escala. Todo mundo está procurando produzir equipamentos hospitalares mais eficientes, que durem mais, que tenham menos troca. Enfim, existe uma nova dinâmica econômica, inclusive, que se estabelece a partir do impacto do coronavírus na nossa perspectiva, inclusive no mundo do trabalho e no mundo da produção. Nesse lastro, é também importantíssimo pensar os impactos, nesse sentido, no campo da cidade. Eu falei que a gente precisa fazer uma revisionar o século XX, mas a revisão do século XX passa também por uma discussão do que nós faremos no pós-pandemia. E, na minha opinião, o pós-pandemia ele está tomado de uma discussão que é a vida, a dignidade humana como peças-chave de construção de qualquer agenda de futuro e de qualquer agenda social e econômica. Nessa pegada, gente...
Só um momentinho. Então,
claro.
So it's difficult for us to type everything. It's very complex what she's saying, but basically summarizing, she's saying that although she said that before, she doesn't consider COVID like a window of opportunity, but it is a window of discussion. And the COVID-19 has demonstrated that when they want, governments can act, and they can do things like universal basic income, or they can do things very differently. And therefore, we not only have to review what happened in the 20th century, she is emphasizing this quite a lot, that we need to review what happened in the 20th century in urban theory, but we need to pay attention to what are the next steps for us. And I think this fits really well with the topic of the manifesto. Pode continuar, Tainá. Desculpa.
Imagina. E nesse sentido, é importante não deixar de lado o que é o pensamento e a construção da agenda urbana à luz desses dois pontos que a gente já falou até aqui. O primeiro, a revisão e a consolidação do que é essa agenda urbana que a gente fez e que a gente deveria fazer. 2, quais são nossas pautas inegociáveis a partir de agora e qual é a expectativa de agenda urbana que a gente quer no futuro. E entendendo quais são as nossas novas bases, os nossos novos pilares de desenvolvimento urbano e de perspectiva de construção de agenda social. No 2020, todo mundo se debruçou, ou deveria ter se debruçado, em que medida, quais são os limites, né, da construção de uma agenda de Estado, qual é a importância dele, e mais uma vez, eu reforço aqui, a importância dos mediadores, né, e não estou aqui querendo reforçar a minha agenda de mulher progressista, mas reforçando que o Estado fez diferença onde, nas sociedades, né, que está presente com fôlego. Referencialmente, o Brasil só não colapsou e sobrevive a Bolsonaro por conta única e exclusiva da existência do SUS. Num outro sentido, na minha opinião, John Biden e Kamala conseguirem romper o trumpismo, né, a partir de uma mediação e uma modulação de discurso, de diálogo com outras frentes, são um importante termômetro para nós avaliarmos quais serão os novos pilares de sustentação de uma agenda urbana, de uma agenda social viável no campo das cidades, no pós-pandemia do Covid-19.
Então, desculpa. The discussion is about the role of the state, and she highlights the importance of having links between citizens and the state. And she gives herself as an example. She is one of those links working in social movements, and then she really is highlighting these points that we need to at the same time review what has been done, but look at the future. And then she is talking about the role of the state, and she says, well, in Brazil we only survived Bolsonaro, our far-right president, because we have a national health system with free health for everyone. We wouldn't have survived him otherwise. And that she is saying that she is very curious about what Kamala Harris and Biden are going to do in the United States. So we need to pay a lot of attention to what they're going to do, also in respect to cities.
Nesse sentido, o que é importante pensarmos, né? Quais serão as nossas cláusulas inegociáveis, os nossos pactos inegociáveis e de longo prazo, né? E objetivamente, em grande medida, como o aspecto urbano e a preocupação com a vida urbana e com a vida humana na cidade perdeu fôlego e esteve ausente ao longo do século XX aqui no Brasil. Criou-se um hábito de construir favelas e periferias como solução precária, claro, um problema crônico, grave, a ser compreendido e a ser enfrentado, mas nunca se constituiu, de fato, soluções profundas de reflexão e destruição dessas hierarquias que, obviamente, colocam a favela e a periferia como única solução aos pobres e aos pretos do Brasil.
Yeah, so she's saying that in Brazil, for example, people got comfortable with the idea that the poor should live in favelas, in slums, and little effort has been done to give them better conditions. And she thinks that people have kind of gotten comfortable with this idea, and we must go forward. We must do things differently. Perdão, desculpa, pode continuar.
Imagina. Na verdade, os pactos sociais, né, e aí eu vou falar, no caso brasileiro, da nossa recentíssima Constituinte de 88, foram pactos que não se entranharam em conversas e em projetos mais enraizados na realidade, no cotidiano da população. Nesse sentido, é importante afirmar que os direitos constitucionais, o debate dos direitos fundamentais não ganharam raiz profunda na população brasileira e, em grande medida, não sofrem defesas porque ainda estão muito descoladas da realidade da população.
So, desculpa. So she's saying that we must pay attention to the constitutional rights that we have in our countries, and that she's saying, well, in Brazil, these constitutional rights are not well understood and perceived by the general population. They don't understand what rights they have, and therefore it's really important that we look at those rights.
E a Constituinte traz dimensões muito progressistas e muito avançadas para o direito, inclusive internacional. Efetivamente, a partir de 88, que os negros brasileiros têm direitos universais.
So the constitution of Brazil is very advanced, even by international standards, it's very progressive, but it's only from 1988 that Brazilian blacks, the black population really achieved full rights, full citizenship.
E é só a partir de 88 que a agenda urbana, civilizatória, de direitos universais no campo da cidade, acesso à água, acesso ao saneamento, função social da terra e da propriedade, são colocadas no grande tratado nacional, que é a Constituição.
So the Constitution of Brazil actually represented a civilizatory project in which urbanization was part of this civilizatory project, in the sense that, and I think it's good to explain here, I think it means it's not civilizing people, but civilizing the country, in the sense of giving rights to everyone so that everyone has access to water, electricity, housing, and so on.
E, nesse sentido, ainda estamos amadurecendo os direitos universais no campo e na cidade.
So universal rights in Brazil, they are still being implemented. They are not fully there yet.
E eles ainda não são defendidos em larga e ampla escala, porque sequer os brasileiros têm noção da importância e do tamanho da responsabilidade que tem de assumir uma agenda de defesa, de ampla defesa da garantia dos direitos humanos na cidade.
So it's important to realize that because Brazilians are not aware of their rights and cannot don't discuss them, they are unable to defend them. And she thinks that it's important that that we discuss them and that we defend people's rights.
E aí, nesse meio do caminho, existe ainda a necessidade da gente refletir sobre a consolidação dessa democracia, que se traduz nessa Constituição, e no lastro disso ainda estabelecer um contraponto à negação desses direitos, que, na minha opinião, se traduz sob a tutela e liderança do atual presidente Jair Bolsonaro.
Well, this part is really about how Bolsonaro comes as an interruption of this process. So the whole thing with Bolsonaro is that he comes and he interrupts this process of civilization of the country, so to speak.
Claro. E aí nós teremos uma dupla, na minha opinião, tripla tarefa, né, daqui para frente, e já abrindo para o debate, para o diálogo com o Suraj, que é o seguinte: como nós vamos estabelecer a importância dos direitos inegociáveis duramente conquistados ao longo do século XX?
So we must. So she thinks we have three things we need to do, 3 challenges we need to face, and she's coming to a conclusion. First, defend all the rights and conquests we had, social victories we had in the 20s and the beginning of the 21st century.
Como nós vamos construir uma agenda mais sólida, mais concreta, mais objetiva do que aquela possível de ser estabelecida na Constituinte de 88, passando por uma agenda de enfrentamento à pobreza concreta, séria, com redistribuição de renda, com redistribuição de terra, com justiça tributária, com uma agenda racial concreta que não privilegie apenas setores minoritários da sociedade, que privilegie as grandes maiorias. Aí eu estou falando de negros, afropindorâmicos, eu estou falando dos mestiços, eu estou falando da ampla maioria periférica e favelada do país, que não se vê sequer representada nos espaços institucionais públicos, né?
So she's saying that it's time for Brazilians and others to come up with an agenda that is more specific and more concrete of action to defend the rights of these populations who are generally Black, mixed race, or indeed peripheral populations in Brazilian cities that still need to attain their rights.
E que, nesse sentido, queira se estabelecer uma discussão que é preciso aprofundar a agenda de direitos no Brasil e não retirar a agenda de direitos do Brasil, que foi uma narrativa que venceu com o bolsonarismo. Bolsonaro ele se vende como um sujeito ultraliberal do Estado mínimo que retira e desobriga o Estado da sua série de obrigações. Como é que a gente faz o giro, inclusive, na sociedade, para que esse tipo de erro não se repita?
So she's saying that the political forces of the moment are contrary to this. We are seeing neoliberal policies be even stronger, and Bolsonaro and Trump, they were elected promising a minimal state without state intervention and without the social agenda that would include these people who are excluded. So we are seeing the contrary happening.
E como a gente estabelece com fôlego uma agenda de discussão urbana que seja ainda mais local, ainda mais setorial, casada com as realidades do cotidiano da população. Talvez...
Deixa eu só te falar, porque a gente está realmente com o tempo já meio estourado.
Claro.
Por causa Então, se você... Desculpa mesmo, mas se
claro.
você concluir, seria...
Claro, esse último ponto é meu fechamento mesmo, prometo, Roberto, perdão.
Você pode repetir, por favor?
Claro. E nesse sentido, o que para mim se faz mais importante é que a gente faça um retorno a uma discussão local, setorial, de enfrentamento e de construção dessa agenda de futuro, que paute a vida das pessoas com maior centralidade e que paute a participação popular e a construção de agendas locais, que seja de bairro, que seja por rua, como China conseguiu operar no enfrentamento ao Covid, como Paraisópolis, como o Complexo do Alemão conseguiram estabelecer no cotidiano do enfrentamento à agenda do Covid nas favelas e periferias.
So she's saying that what to do and what are the ways that we have to combat this comeback from the neoliberal state with the minimal state. She believes it's at the local level with street and neighborhood action that involves the lives of citizens directly with things that they can understand, that we can negotiate this. É isso aí?
É isso. Obrigada demais, Roberto.
Muito obrigado, Tainá. Thank you so much, Tainá. Thank you so much. Let's give her. We are a bit late now. Zoom meetings are horrible. Yeah. We are a bit late, so I propose that we go straight to Suraj, and then we have questions in the end. But for everyone, please put your questions in the chat in English, obviously, and then we will try to deal with the questions when we get there. But Ganesh.
Hello, everyone. I'm Ganesh Babu, Master Student at the Department of Urbanism in TU Delft. I'm extremely happy to introduce the second speaker of this session, Suraj Yengde. Suraj is currently a senior fellow at the Harvard Kennedy School of Public Policy. You might know him as the author of Caste Matters. In his explosive book, Suraj, who is a first-generation Dalit scholar educated across continents, challenges deep-seated beliefs about caste and unpacks its many layers. Suraj is a multilingual published author in the field of caste, race, ethnicity studies, and interregional labor migration in the Global South. Currently, he is involved in developing a critical theory of Dalit and Black studies. Suraj, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Ganesh. Allow me to extend my congratulations to my co-panelist, Tanya, for her election to the council and for her extremely invigorating agenda that she has proposed. I think I got educated on Brazil today more than any Bloomberg news report I would usually consult to discuss or think about the combination of problems in the Bolsonaro's Brazil. We also have similar problems equivalent to Bolsonaro in our own context, in our own country, that is going stronger for his second term, and who knows, 3 and 4 terms as well. It is in that context, allow me to call out the people with the background to acknowledge their work. First of all, thank you, Roberto. Roberto had reached out early on, and finally, we are meeting now. Thank you for the amazing project. I want to learn more about the manifesto that you guys are drawing for a just city, something very close to even my experience and my praxis. But also I would like to thank the students who are part of this, Natalia, Jonathan, Anya, Caroline, Lucas, Ganesh, and also the colleagues, Russell, Luz. Thank you so much for this opportunity to discuss with you. I just loved the previous presentation so much that I am still processing that information, because irrespective of the linguistic barriers that I personally had, I really was engrossed in that powerful testament that was presented to us. In this case, the case study I'm going to present to you is about another very populous democracy in the world, which is India. And in this context of framing India, especially talking to the urban planners, geographers, architects, people who really work with curves and geometries, it's very difficult to have a philosophical straight lining. So I will also try to engage with you almost on a metaphysical level of my project of putting the Dalit, or what I call, or the former untouchables of the India's, or rather South Asia's demography. Unlike the majority of the world, Latin America, Africa, not Africa, but Southern Africa and some part of East Africa, Australasia, the white colonized country problem, which kind of erupts into normalizing and harmonizing the melanin content of the individual and thereby granting a certain superior status. That problems that we see in Latin America, in United States of America, and other parts of the world, we don't necessarily have similar problems reflecting in the tone and tonality of white supremacy. We have what we call and what we try to fight back is a Brahmin supremacy, or in an activist context, or in academic context rather, we call it Brahminical supremacy. I will break down these new terminologies perhaps for some of you to really make sense of what is this problem that we're grappling with. First off, the context of India's civilization that we frame as one of those of antiquities that had a modernities existing in this context, which is of course the Harappa and Mohenjo-daro as being one of the, if not ultimate, but penultimate civilizations that had redescribed the analogy of how you frame not only an utopia, but exercise it into creating new urban locations. The Harappa and Mohenjo-daro was almost a challenge to what we have in immigration from Aryan, which is a Caucasus land, a steppe land, into the Indian heartland, and whereby a colonization, one of the earlier experiences of colonization was witnessed in northern part of India. Within that context, what happens is about 2,100 years ago, a law is drawn, basically a law that prohibits all of that, plus much more what about 1,600 years later, the Europeans did to the rest of the world. And then we see the mature form coming up again in apartheid South Africa and in Jim Crow America. That form is a Varna system. Varna literally translates into color system. This color system was later codified and made into a strict hierarchical caste system. A person who was born to a Brahmin family was determined to be a Brahmin, and Brahmin was an Übermensch, the top, the Nietzschean analogy of someone who is a Superman. And if you belong to the second, third, fourth, there were four major categories that were divided according to your caste status, and thereby there were occupations given to you. The Brahmin, that's why, remained at the top, and then at the bottommost, who were not counted within the human ecology, were untouchables. Untouchables were the defeated tribes of the native India, who were then subjugated to dehumanizing attributes. The essence of untouchability prescribes three forms. First is, of course, the untouched, the touch being the most poisonous touch for a pure soul. The untouchables were declared impure by the very virtue of their birth. So even now, my ancestors who were born were declared an impure touched being. Then there was a second aspect, which was very spatially fundamental to maintaining caste system, which was unseeability. It is you were not encouraged to see a person who belonged to the untouchable caste. So the sight of an untouchable would impure or defile your existence. And of course, the third was unapproachability, the cutting of corporeal relations with an entire swath of population. Now, this is something that has been over 2 millennia been improvised over several years, but the primary doctrine that remained law of the land until the colonial regime, which mostly the British came and tried to intervene in this, was a document which was called Manu Smruti, which translates as the Law of Manu, and in a polemical language, it is law of the land. So this was how the pre-colonial apartheid existed in the Indian space. Now, India gets independence or transfer of power rather in 1947, but our actual country gets to its own independence steam in 1950. That's when our constitution, India becomes republic, where we then law of the land, which is basically a constitution, India's constitution, then grants various rights and recognitions to various communities. Now, within this parlance, what happens to the former untouchables? The former untouchables all of a sudden doesn't become touchable, and neither do they become approachables or seeables. The urban infrastructure almost immediately replicates the model of India's rural society. Now, Gandhi, someone who came from the Baniya, from the dominant caste, had glorified the recognition of the caste system, but also he had punctuated that with maintaining a strict hierarchical order, which was spatially segregated. which he basically borrowed from a British man, which was called village republics. So the village republic, it meant village are self-sufficient. We need to not rely on exterior forces. We can create our own business. However, the catch was the people who were doing the most filthiest and non-paying jobs were not up for that, because the people who are already on the higher scale of economic order would want to get that, because you have access to not only labor but also to their surplus value, which the person, the worker in this case, the working class who produces, is not able to account to that labor. And that's why the fashioning of village as being a self-sufficient substance didn't sit well with the lower caste, or what we call the Dalit population. And to counter that, a call was made by Gandhi's arch rival, an untouchable leader in his own might, Dr. Ambedkar, who registered Indian Dalits to appeal to them to leave the villages. Why would they leave the village economy? Because in rural areas, these were the people who lived outside village. Especially they were far, so even if they have to fetch a water, they have to come into the village, almost 1 or 2 kilometers, and sometimes in enormous amount of time to walk. Second is their wholesome reliance of survival was on agrarian economy. And in India, the feudal lord belongs to the caste, which is on the dominant scale. So within the caste order, the feudal lord, in this case, the pure economic relations were inserted through caste lines. And that's why the vulnerability of you, one, is to be a minority and segregated outside of the village, almost on the periphery, and 2, on relying on your oppressor who wants to exploit you, made the Dalit families prone to atrocities. And that's why we even see today major caste-based discrimination and violence takes place in the form of atrocities on these communities. So when they come to urban area, this is where it gets more interesting. What do they do? What do the Dalits do? Do Dalits then all of a sudden become part of an urban economy? What they do, but they become as an informal economy. The reason state wants to maintain an informal economy, and many of you would know and attest to that, is to not to account to the value that the labor is bringing into urban economy, but also to ignore from the state responsibilities of providing them the basic facilities of survival. And the areas that Dalits occupied in urban locale eventually get translated into a slum areas. And the modern slums in India, almost 35% of urban India's population is a slum dwelling population. Now here's the catch. Of every 5 slum dweller in India, 1 is a Dalit, which means about 28% of India's Dalit population, taking from the 2011 census data, is a Dalit, which means the Dalit existence overwhelmingly, disproportionately is conditioned upon the urban marginalizations of this community. Now, how does that impact an agenda of equal utopian society that we usually envision? And also to how do we bring a socialist perspective? Now, one of the catch in this is when you read the annals of South African apartheid, one of the importance of post-1948 South African apartheid system managed to do was to not only segregate but condition the socio-political happenings of the black, white, and other so-called colored community. Within the Indian context, that was already happening in the early 19th century, where spatial segregation and the time one can enter a city and not for untouchables was already decided in Western Maharashtra, Western India, where a law was already passed. There were 2 reasons for this. One is, of course, according to the religious scriptures supported by the Hindu dogma, but also there was a fear of Dalit mixture with a non-Dalit blood, which is basically the fear of miscegenation. And that's why a clear-cut demarcation of what time a Dalit can enter and what time he cannot or she cannot was conditioned upon this, where the Brahminical civilization aimed to build upon this. Now you can find the parallels within the colonial societies in various parts of the world who basically followed the similar instances. But what we are talking about here in this case is it was predating some of the other instances that you read as one of those pernicious forms. Now this then gets into the complicated agenda of environmental problems. Whenever we have the agenda of the New Deal or the New Green Deal, within that the Dalit consensus doesn't adequately fit or affix to it, because unlike the working class population in other parts of the world, of course, Tainá discussed about it being the black people, the native or the mixed race people. In India, it is about the caste oppressed people whose agenda then gets subverted into becoming a global libertarian or liberal, or in some case left agenda, whereas the Dalit livelihoods as a Dalit subject becomes dissolved. And I think it is upon this, the settlements, wherever settlements, like my family came from rural area, they settled in urban area because they didn't have jobs and there were atrocities. Whichever areas they settled, eventually then started developing their own little economy. And when eventually the Dalits themselves over 2 generations created that area for themselves, state then started to come and extract taxes from them. And then you see that's why there is always a resistance between this population. Slum also brought something, especially urbanity brought something to Dalits that was very important, and that was the idea of rebellion and revolution. They utilized the space of city to talk about the liberal values of rights, capital R. These rights were fundamental to establishing their citizenship as an equal person. Even today in India, the many slum dwellers are still the refugees of Indian nation. The country doesn't give them, sometimes if they are Muslims, they call them Bangladeshis, or people who are from outside the country. When it comes to Dalit, they call them criminals. And that's why the citizenship aspect remains contested in this space. Many urban planners have romanticized the idea of slums and tried to present to the world about this kind of comparing with favelas and other and Kenya slums or slums in Cape Town. The slum in the Indian context most particularly is a caste cosmopolitanism. It doesn't exist outside this vicious form of damage that has been done to control this enormous mass of people. And that's why it gives rise to the 2 distinctions that we make. Untouchability was a social separation. In normal context, what we have is a social separation between communities, and usually that you can see in any form of societal order. However, when it comes to advanced form of untouchability, in addition to social separation, Ambedkar argues it is territorial segregation. An entire territorial control is taken away from this mass of people. And I think it is in this context what we today see is the major cities in India. One is Kolkata. 60% of neighborhoods in Kolkata don't have a single Dalit resident. Now, talk about Ahmedabad or Bhavnagar in Gujarat, the Prime Minister Modi's former state, 80% of neighborhoods in Ahmedabad and Bhavnagar don't have Dalit residents. If you go down to Bangalore, it's 21% of neighborhoods don't have Dalit residents. So what we essentially see is the Dalit labor that has been banished from integrating into this is not a new. It has been a doctored policy space that was created for Dalits to remain marginalized. And caste system is, as we see, the social segregation of caste people was immediately replicated in cities. Cities used metaphors of development. It used the metaphors of economy. It used the metaphors of human rights. However, what it did not address was the near duplication of this pernicious caste-based segregation into urban areas. And so to conclude, what we see in this forms of political weighing of of the communities in this case is where the broader neighborhoods, for example, one might say it's mixed. However, if you go on a ward level data, and Naveen Bharti has done an excellent work, where what he did was he went into identifying the ward level data, because within bigger neighborhoods, there are smaller wards, which is where segregation actually takes place. And the modern cities like Pune were already decided for the marginalized populations who belong to the lower caste or the untouchables were already excluded. And that's why the prime locations which were considered sacred, which is a Brahmin occupied space, remain Brahmin occupied space. And you can find that in cities like Chennai, in cities like Bombay, and in every other cities. What they essentially did was they created a gated community, which is almost equivalent to if you go in Johannesburg, in one of the former colonizers, the white population in Johannesburg occupies the Hyde Park. Of course, integration of some Indian Muslims who again are part of the bourgeois clan of that society. However, the other populations are then spread out in Soweto and as well as other slums, Alexandria and so forth. Similar form almost in its totality, in its totality is existed. And that's why the conversation in this remains fundamental to how does city hygiene is maintained. And this is the catch. The city hygiene is maintained by Dalit population, absolutely. 97% of city hygiene workers are people who belong to the Dalit community. If they decide not to work, the cities will have more definitive problems than what we have COVID right now. So when you are relying on the labor who is again banished to the peripheral locations, yet we need their labor to maintain our purity, the same purity that banished these untouchables, their ancestors, for by the very virtue of their site, is now wanted in urban locality to reproduce the same purity form, where if you want to remain clean and if your shit needs to be taken out of your site, you need a Dalit labor and a Dalit body to do that. While at the same time, the hygiene doesn't correspond to the neoliberal promises of what it called bringing a egalitarian economy that definitely advances the labor of the individual. Contractual arrangements of labor gets to 2 to 3 degrees. There's not just one contractor, but there are subcontractors who employ, and state washes its hand simply because this huge population is deprived of their rights. And if Dalits chose to have their own country, they will be the 6th largest nation in the world. That is the huge mass we are talking about. And within this conversational dynamics, what we need to then understand is how the Dalit rebellion then converts into becoming a state problem. And today, the urban dwellers who mostly belong to this progressive circles or the marginalized sections who protest against the values that were promised within urbanity are now declared as urban Naxals. Naxals is equivalent to the Maoist sympathizers who are using guns to fight. Today, these people are declared as the almost urban terrorists in its location. And so the Dalit, if it was in rural, would be terrorized by the feudal caste. If it comes to the urban locations, it gets terrorized by the state. And the people who continue to occupy the land and who displace the majority of this people belong to a specific caste of people. In Bombay, these are the immigrants, Sindhi community from Punjab, who came, occupied the land, and now is building and now is creating the new high tower promises of this developing economy. Therefore, I think when we talk about space, we need to understand Dalits remain the most oppressed people in the world, and more particularly Dalit women. Dalit women are not just oppressed because they are women, they're also oppressed because they are Dalit for their caste. They're also oppressed because they are poor for their class. And fourth, they're oppressed because spatially they are located on the most marginalized sections, where their articulation cannot then foment into a new revolutionary dynamics. People ask me, can there be a Dalit revolution? I have a pessimistic response, because unlike French Revolution, when they blasted Bastille, We don't have that facilities in India, because the people who will rebel will have to take 3 modes of transportation to get to the secretariat or to the prince's office, and the state then again controls, and then it becomes the subordinate structure. I thank you all for your attention, and I look forward to the Q&A.
Thanks. It's so, Zoom is so anticlimactic, man, because we would love to be cheering you and clapping our hands.
We can.
Yeah, we can. It's very anticlimactic, but I think we are in a very interesting part of our event today, where there are some questions. If you allow me, and please, my co-organizers, you are most welcome to interrupt me. I don't know if Ganesh would like to say something, but I just want to highlight that the 2 speakers talk to us about 2 realities that in the end are a bit similar in many senses. Brazil and India are 2 of the most unequal places on earth, and there is a lot of urban reform to be done. But both of them spoke to us about the importance of having rights and of having a legal basis for those rights. Otherwise, you cannot fight for those rights. Both of them talked to us in different ways, but I think Suraj really used the word invisibility. But I think Tainá also alluded to that when she said that people are, in the periphery. So there is an issue of invisibility of these populations. And another thing that became quite clear in the 2 talks was the fact that the state sometimes uses these oppressed populations, instrumentalizes these oppressed populations for a reason, right? So they are a source of cheap labor. They do the work that nobody wants to do. And I think another thing that both of them alluded to was that both India and Brazil have kind of become accustomed or accepting that people live in very bad conditions in slums. So nothing changes. But I just want to go to the questions. One of the questions is pretty simple. So maybe for Tainá or Suraj, how can we ensure that the laws and regulations that we already have are implemented instead of being just beautiful words? I don't know who wants to answer.
Posso responder rapidinho, Roberto?
Pode falar, pode falar.
Eu vejo que a fala do Suraj foi muito direta e que se complementa a minha fala quando a gente precisa estabelecer melhor e mais qualificado debate sobre favelas, né? E sobre o que nós vamos perpetuar, o que nós vamos permitir de ser perpetuado no futuro. Já complementando a outra pergunta, né, falando muito sobre nosso desafio para frente, como é que a gente faz do poder local um grande instrumento desse debate público no que se refere às favelas e aos assentamentos precários, enfim. E eu vejo que um termo que a gente vem usando aqui no Brasil e que é determinante para a construção disso, para essa consciência urbana, se pode ser assim, é como é que a gente constrói uma alfabetização urbana, para além dos arquitetos, para além dos urbanistas, para além da categoria que já se mobiliza ao redor dessa discussão. O processo eleitoral me fez ver que a discussão urbana ela é muito viva na ampla maioria dos setores da discussão de cidade, viu? As pessoas falam do transporte, as pessoas falam do preço do transporte, as pessoas falam da precariedade das suas casas, falam que querem terminar suas casas. Então, na minha opinião, a gente tem que construir um glossário para os arquitetos, né? Um dicionário de popularizar. Oi, estão me ouvindo?
Deu uma cortadinha. Pode continuar. Pode
tá. A gente precisa construir um dicionário, um glossário, para a gente conseguir popularizar a discussão urbana entre os arquitetos e conseguir entender melhor quais são as expectativas nos diversos setores sociais. E que estejam todos...
Conclui, daí eu vou traduzir.
Tá. E que estejam, e que contemple todos os setores sociais. Uma agenda urbana para todo mundo é urgente.
So she's saying that she really appreciates Suraj's talk, which she felt was very direct and also very complementary. Both of them complement each other. That she thinks that we need a much more ample debate about slums and how did we get used to them. What are we going to allow to continue in urban development? So should we allow slums to continue, and can we provide housing? And she thinks that she is asking, but I think she means, how can we use local authorities and the local arena as an instrument for debate? And what she means by urban alphabetization is she says that we need to build a glossary to communicate about the urban problems, not only with the architects, but we also need to allow the population, common people who are not educated, to understand the problems of the city. Traduzir bem, é isso aí. Vamos. Okay. Suraj, would you like to say something?
Yes, thank you. Thank you for, I was just trying to read some of the questions. Thank you. I will just quickly respond to the same question that was asked. I think, one of the, we really need to reimagine how a society and space should look like. It's not just about arrangement of housing and facilities of basic, but also how does it maneuver potential relations of contradictions. Usually the contradictions remain almost a policy device where the state really wants, it's a very much Foucauldian idea of how violence is there for state to keep an absolute control on the communities. In my case, I would like to think about an agenda that actually plans to remove two things. One is, of course, the stereotyping of slum and slum dwellers. I mean, I came from a slum, and I never told until very recently that I came from slum, because it carried a very negative idea. It added criminality. It almost sent a threatening note. So I almost lied, not almost, every time I lied when a person from a non-Dalit community asked me where do I come from, I referred to a Brahmin colony next to mine. So just to have a safe passage. So I think that kind of the social relations are so subverted and rationalized eventually that that the prejudice of slum needs to be kind of revisited. But that doesn't mean romanticization. And this happened to me at Harvard in one of my professor's class, Bill Wilson, who studies inner city neighborhoods, where there was a Harlem resident, a Black man, and me as a Dalit. And there was a question, there was a topic where people say that people who leave slums, they disown the slums, or they don't pay enough attention to the slums, or they don't go back to their slums. They miss out the point. We don't want to go back to slums because it's not a good life. It's not a safe life. It's not a secure life. If you want to bring up your child in a slum, if you had a choice, you would not do it because there is a hit and go kind of moment. Wherever Dalits got mobility, or any community in this case got mobility, tries to leave, because if you have to raise a decent family, slum doesn't accord you that. It's not that the people are wrong, but state maintains that violent order in these areas by regulating an anarchic function. And when there are some innovations coming out of this, the intellectual mafias, then notify to the world about the peculiarity of slum. That means slums are so important to our existence, and now we should then think about creating something within slums. If you ask me from my perspective, I would not want to live in slum. I want to live in a posh or even a decent housing where it is not really attached to an identity, which of course it's not possible. But there is a parallel kind of arrangement I think we can do. Doesn't mean if Dalits live in an area, for example, if Dalits move into an area, there is a fear that the price of the property might go down, and that's why there are openly housing societies which will not even give houses to us, even though you might have a good job, and it's clearly mentioned Dalits are not allowed here, or it says by specific caste, Brahmins only or Baniyas only. They don't want to. So I think there is a more, I think, ideological, but also I think we have to think about practical ramifications of this.
Great, thank you so much. Thanks, Suraj. There are quite the chat is alive. Ayn, would you like to say something about that? Because you two come from Kolkata. Would you like to say something?
Yes, I do come from Kolkata, and currently I am at home. So I am actually currently residing in a slum. If that is like, it's like you own it, like whatever Suraj said, it's about owning the place. And from a like perspective of whatever I have been educated in, so like whatever kind of this romanticism that we have been talking about. So actually, to some extent, a few of the characteristics that we find in the slum, it is something that cities should learn from. Like for example, when we talk about walkability, or we talk about in like community sense, those things. But yeah, that is true on the other sense, on the other part, that the access to services, like it is really poor. So it's like there should be a way to like from my perspective, and currently I'm working on the similar lines on the project. So like how to basically integrate these people to the main system, because the truth is even that the people who reside in these slums, they are unaware even about what rights exist. So what rights do they have? They are unaware even about that. So they are like very happy with the situation, thinking like whatever they have. And another problem is that government, they neglect it, and also they kind of manipulate this crowd, because in the long run they become like the vote bank for these people, like in the elections and those things. So it's like multi-layer of what do you say, many layers or tangents are there that needs to be, it's very complicated if we really
so
want
you're saying that citizens become clients, right? That's
yeah. So if we really want to solve this issue, it's not a very easy deal, and it's not very simple. You give them social housing, it will fix the thing. I don't think so that's like so easy to fix.
Yeah,
so,
yeah, maybe giving social housing is not the answer for everything, right? Tainá, você gostaria de interromper, falar alguma coisa sobre essa questão de romantização também da favela? De achar que tá lindo na favela e...
Sim. Eu acho, é sempre um debate muito complicado, né, Roberto? E eu entendo que tem dois caminhos importantes da gente pensar. O primeiro, que é a resposta à invisibilidade e ao arrancamento, né, a remoção, que foi uma realidade que marcou o século XX, o começo do século XXI em relação às favelas aqui no Brasil, e que levou, na extrema medida, à romantização, no limite, entendendo que a defesa da favela era importante de ser estabelecida. Alguns setores do nosso debate urbano acabaram reforçando a discussão da permanência a partir da subjetividade, a partir da beleza, a partir do repertório cultural. E claro que são dimensões importantes, mas, para mim, a agenda de enfrentamento da miséria é a agenda que deve se estabelecer no enfrentamento da miséria miséria territorial, da miséria urbana, que não pode ser colocada como menor. Eu acho que esse é o grande desacordo, né, que a gente tem com grandes setores aí do campo da cidade, né, que refletem o debate da favela como um debate de perpetuação da pobreza, né, stricto sensu.
Mm-hmm. She's saying that indeed there are many sectors around in Brazil as well, where people also tend to romanticize or to focus more on the positive aspects of the slum, like the culture, the architecture and other issues, and they forget the issue of urban poverty. So she thinks that urban poverty must be addressed first. And even if there are things that we must learn from the favela, this need to address urban poverty kind of overrides it. So she said that this response to invisibility generated a lot of debate in Brazil about slum removals, for example. And yeah, because people didn't want to see the slums, right? So that's interesting. Suraj.
I think, did I cover what Ayn was saying? Or because I think she basically had contributed to something what I said, and she also directed her attention to look at some other aspects of this spatial layering, I guess.
Guys, I'm so sorry, but we are getting to the end of our session today. We have a little workshop with the people doing the manifesto, but I'm so sorry that we will need to close this part of our activity today. So a lot of people who are in the room, they're not doing the manifesto, so they if they want, they can stay, obviously. But we are, I invite you to all of you to buy Suraj's book, Caste Matters, to follow Tainá on Instagram, because I know she is very active on Instagram. And for those who didn't understand it very well, she has just been elected city councilwoman in the city of Rio de Janeiro in Brazil. So it's a big thing for everyone. We are very happy for her. And I hope she will be governor of Rio very, very soon. Right? Guys, thank you so much for your participation. For those,
thank you, Roberta.
Thank you, Tainá. Thank you, Suraj. Thank you so much. We will get in touch with you. We will write to you very soon to thank you properly. But now we need to go on with our debate. Guys, we are going to have a 3-minute break. It's called a comfort break in English. And for those who stay with us, please stay there. For those who are not staying with us, thank you very, very much for being here today. We will keep you informed about our activities, and we'll send you the report of all our activities until now with this manifesto. Thanks a lot. So 3 minutes break. See you guys.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye, everybody. Thank you for having me. Take care.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Bye.